Wow, what can you say to that? Fair income. Anyhow, we won't say any more about that. G'day everybody, welcome to Pub Yarns. Still not at the pub, but anyhow, that's another story. So let's see how yous all go this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to, put your tips in the comments down below. Anyhow, we're going to kick off with this week's recap. Last week we had the Sharks versus the Sea Eagles. I thought the Sea Eagles might have been a bit better than they were. They didn't get beat by much, but the Sharks seem to have a bit more to prove than the Sea Eagles. Turbo's still out for Manly, and I think that's made a fair bit of difference, and that score ended up at 28-22, Sharks 28, Seagulls 22. Next game in was the Knights versus the Eels. Mate, I'm an Eel supporter and not getting too happy about what's going on. I have a sneaky suspicion, and mark my words, that I reckon the Eels and St George might be doing the spoon bowl at the end of the year. But once again, Newcastle's come away pretty good against the Eels. Same score as the first, 28-22. Next up was the Tigers versus the Bulldogs, and I reckon the Bulldogs will be going themselves, maybe we shouldn't have signed Lachlan Garland. But anyhow, the Tigers stuck to their game plan and come away with the goods. They beat the Bulldogs 22-16. I think the Tigers are improving a little bit more than the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs seem to be slipping away at the moment. Next up was the Melbourne Storm versus the Roosters. I really thought the Roosters might have done a lot better than what they did. The Roosters seem to be fairly flat. The Storm seem to be putting some more combinations together, and I'm thinking to myself, are the Storm going to do what Panthers done last year? Panthers last year, this time they were last, and where'd they come? Storm, they're down near the bottom, not last, but they start to turn around. So I don't know, we'll have to see what happens there. But anyhow, Storm come away a victory over the Roosters, 18-4. So the Storm done fairly well, Roosters not so good. Next in was something I mentioned last week. The Dragons are going to get a win. It's against the Broncos, and by jings, I didn't take the Dragons, but I was almost did. But as it turned out, I thought the Broncos would have beat the Dragons by 4, but it was the other way around. Dragons beat the Broncos by 4, so that was the upset of the round. Maybe the Dragons has turned a point, and once again I think they might be playing for the wooden spoon on the last round between the Eels, but we'll see how that pans out also. Next up was the Canberra Raiders against the Cowboys. Once again, I probably should have known better. North Queensland's a long way from Canberra, and Canberra is very cold, and Canberra was at home last week. Should have taken Canberra in the cold, but anyhow, the Raiders played pretty good compared to the Cowboys. The Cowboys didn't really want to show up and play much footy, where the Raiders seemed a bit more keen, and the Raiders come away with that game 26-12. Alright, the last game of the round was Panthers versus the Warriors, which is basically 1 versus 2. Panthers did rest a few players, and it was a bit of a seesawing sort of an account all the way through, and that late try by the Panthers about 10 minutes out, I think it was enough to seal the deal. Panthers come away 20-18. First game in is the Rabbits versus Manly, and the Rabbits got a few players coming back. We've got David Fafita coming back, Graham Campbell and Brendan Smith are all on the return. Manly's still got Turbo still out, and has got a couple other players still missing from the team. Let's see, Latrell's still out. I still think Manly's got enough in the tank to do the business, but not by much. I think Manly by 2. Alright, the next game in is Melbourne versus Newcastle, and it looks like Newcastle will be playing with Kalen Ponga and obviously Dylan Brown. Harry Grant's back in for Melbourne, along with Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes, Nick Meaney's still missing from Melbourne, which is going to be a bit of a telltale. Where are Melbourne at? Anyway, it didn't go too bad last week. The Knights did beat the Eels. Melbourne, what did they beat? Melbourne beat the Roosters, which was a big thing, eh? Knights beat the Eels, not so big. Are the Eels playing good enough? No. Mate, I think Melbourne's probably good enough here, eh? Melbourne at home. Melbourne by 4, I reckons. Alright, the next game in is the Raiders versus the Roosters, and it's down there at Canberra. It's always a bit cold down there, but this time I don't think it's going to matter too much because the Roosters come from Sydney, not North Queensland, so the weather will have a little bit, but not a lot. The Raiders do have 2 players coming back, and let's see, Mark, the winger from the Roosters, he's still got 1 more week before he comes back. But the Roosters are almost at full strength, and I think the Roosters might just have enough in the tank to do the Raiders. Score-wise, I think Roosters by 4, and they need to bounce back if they're going to make any sort of inroads to this grand final. So that's my thinking. Next one up is the Queensland Derbies, the North Queensland Cowboys versus the Dolphins. And I think the Dolphins will still be marching along. The Hammers still playing well. It is in North Queensland, but the Dolphins come from the coast here at Brisbane, so they'll be good to go up there, and there'll be no weather stuff involved in that. Who's going to win this one? Dearden's still out, isn't he? Have a quick look at that. I have a sneaky suspicion that Mr. Dearden from the Cowboys. Yeah, Tommy Dearden's still out. He won't be back until round 16. So on the back of that, who's been thinking? Dearden out, Drinkwater's in, Hammer's in for the Dolphins. Nah, Dolphins. Definitely the Dolphins. Dolphins by 6. Brisbane versus the Titans. Last week, Brisbane, seriously? Reece Walsh, have you forgotten how to play football or something? Anyhow, I think Madge would have been pretty cranky over last week, and he would have drilled those Broncos. And as for the Titans, well, they're coming second last with a -88 next to their game. But Broncos aren't going that much better. They've just got -61 next to their name, so this one could go either way. But Brisbane at home, and I think that might be good enough. It's a Saturday night game, so that could be interesting. 7:30. Broncos don't mind playing at home. I'm going to take the Broncos, but I'm not going to go by much. I think the Broncos by 4. Next game in is West Tigers versus the Panthers. Well, Tigers did play good last week, and I can't see the Panthers putting anything wrong. I think they're going to be almost at full strength. Tigers are running 10th, Panthers first, and Panthers played a pretty solid game last week. And they had a few guys missing out of their team, and they still played well. I don't think the Tigers have got much of a chance against the Panthers, and I'm going the Panthers. Panthers by 16, because Cleary's going to be back and his boot's going to be working well. Next in is Cronulla versus the good old Sharks, who beat Brisbane last week. Cronulla. Who's missing out of the Cronulla side? I think Nico's missing. And Nico Hines out with a calf injury, which is going to be a big thing. They've got a couple of players coming back this week, but they're nowhere near as good as Nico. Sharks versus the Dragons. Who am I kidding? Dragons are no good. They've had one flash in the pan. I'm going Sharks by 12. Next in is the Canterbury versus Parramatta. Oh, look at old Dogs versus the Eels. This is anybody's game. Dogs versus the Eels. I have a sneaky suspicion, and if this is true, I have a sneaky suspicion that Mitch Moses might be out. Mitch Moses is out, and Penasini's out, and so is Junior Paulo. That's a lot of people. Will Penasini still out? They've got 9 players out, the Eels. Dogs? Dogs. What's going on with the Dogs? Dogs have got 2 players coming back. They've only got, what, 4 or 5 players out. Galvin. I just don't know about this game. This game can go either way. But I think the Dogs out of home, which is enough because it's both in Sydney, but I think the Dogs just might have the Eels here. I really want to go to the Eels over, but I just can't. So I'm going to go to Dogs by 6. Alright, time for the recap. So the first game in, we've got Manly by 2. Next one, Melbourne by 4. Roosters by 4. Dolphins by 6. Broncos by 4. The only unmatched, uneven game is the Panthers by 16. Sharks by 12, which should be a bit of a runaway. And the Dogs by 6. So basically, out of the 8 games, 6 are close and 2 are not. Righto then, we'll see you all next week.